We've learned that Vice President Kamala Harris has officially conceded the 2024 presidential election, calling President-elect Donald Trump to offer her congratulations. Our senior White House correspondent, MJ Lee, is here with me in the studio. Give our viewers a little bit more information. What else are you learning?
Yeah, this was a phone call that we had been waiting on all day. We are told by a senior Harris aide that the vice president did call the former president to concede the 2024 race. She congratulated him on his victory. And we are told that she talked about the importance of the transfer of power, being peaceful, and also about being a president for all Americans. Of course, as we have been talking about all day long, the next time we expect to hear directly from the vice president is at Howard University. This is, of course, where she was expected to be. Last night, she ended up not appearing at her own election night party. This is not surprising that the vice president ended up making this concession phone call. We got no indications whatsoever from Democrats and the Harris campaign that she had any plans to contest the race in any way. I think watching for the tone that she uses and exactly how she talks about her loss and this moment in American politics is going to be so significant. There are going to be millions of Americans, many of whom are disappointed, even despondent about the results of last night's election, who will be looking to her for cues on, so what does this mean for going forward? How do I move on? This was an election that was so divisive, that was so just ramped up in the rhetoric. And I think a lot of people are wondering, well, now that the vice president has conceded the race, what are the cues that we can take from her on what moving on actually looks like and how to process the prospect of Donald Trump coming back for a second term at the White House?
And I think it's important to note, as you and I well know, and all of our viewers know as well, she is now doing what Trump refused to do 4 years ago when he lost the presidential election. He refused to concede. He refused to congratulate her. He refused all of the normal things that politicians in America have always done when they lose an election. They congratulate the winner and they move on. Right. She is doing that right now, to her credit.
Yeah, and so much of her campaign had been about emphasizing sort of the norms that had been in place for so many years in our country and our politics, and something that, as you point out, the former president so often refused to abide by and refused to go along with, something as simple as a concession call. You're absolutely right that was one of the many ways in which Donald Trump was just different.
And remember what happened when he refused to concede, as he should have done 4 years ago. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez is over at Harris's campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C. Kristen Holmes is over at Trump campaign headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. Priscilla, first to you. Give us some new details about what Kamala Harris will say in her concession speech.
Yeah, well, we're learning in the last hour that the vice president did call former President Donald Trump and congratulated him on his win. According to an aide, she also discussed what they called, quote, the importance of a peaceful transfer of power and being a president for all Americans. Now, that is a theme that is likely to continue into her remarks later this afternoon at her alma mater of Howard University. That is where sources tell CNN she is going to implore supporters to accept the results of the election and also urge supporters to find common ground. So that is what we're anticipating in her remarks that, again, are scheduled for later this afternoon. But behind the scenes, Wolf, there has been a state of shock and disbelief among her allies and sources close and in the campaign. Of course, remember, Wolf, that over the course of yesterday into election night, senior Harris campaign officials had been projecting privately and publicly confidence and optimism in their internal data and their belief that undecided voters or voters who previously leaned Republican would support the vice president. That ultimately was not what the results showed. And now they are contending with that. There has been some finger pointing about the strategy and whether it was wise to go, for example, after those disaffected Republicans with Liz Cheney, or whether they did enough to lock in their base. But certainly those are the questions that they will continue to grapple over the next several days and weeks. But ultimately, Wolf, she has conceded. She has called the former president, and she will be speaking to her supporters later this afternoon. Wolf.
Priscilla Alvarez, thanks very much, over at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Right now, I want to go to CNN's Kristen Holmes, as she's in West Palm Beach, Florida, over at the Trump campaign headquarters. What are you learning right now?
Well, Donald Trump has been on the phone mostly all day talking to allies, advisors. We know that some foreign leaders have reached out to the former president. All of this is going to be very important to Donald Trump, as loyalty is one of the key things that he looks for as he is building out his next administration. And I can tell you, Wolf, that the knives are already out, not just among Donald Trump's campaign, but really his entire orbit. People have been calling me all morning. They've been calling the campaign, his inner circle, trying to pitch themselves for various roles in the administration, or just to remind the people around Donald Trump how loyal they were to the former president at various times. One thing to keep in mind, Donald Trump was keeping track of who endorsed him and when it came to Republicans, noting that if they endorsed him before Iowa, they were more loyal than people who only endorsed him after they thought that he could win. Now, conversations around administration posts have largely happened without the former president, who has said that he didn't want to have these conversations until he actually won the election, largely because he is superstitious. Now, he himself has floated various names at different occasions, but not really been a part of any real conversations. That really ends today. People on the campaign already received emails as to what exactly the transition was going to look like, how it was going to move forward, and as I noted, there is so much jockeying going on in Trump's world and his larger orbit as to who actually gets an administration position, that all of this is starting now as we look forward to January.
All right, Kristen Holmes, thanks very, very much.